everybody, and welcome to the pep talk for week 8. This is where we get into WordPress site building, so I'm sure many of you are very excited by that. Those of you who are going to be sad to stop doing HTML coding, you don't have to stop. Keep on improving that wireframe like a hobby that you keep in the basement and go back to for relaxation purposes. You can always get better. We are now at the middle of the course. We've had 7 weeks and we've got 7 weeks to go. I've done about a bit of reorganization of the Moodle site, so if we take a look at that. I just have class announcements, the HTML, CSS Q&A, the WordPress Q&A, and the course clarifications and advice by week on top. These are the things we're probably going to be using most from now on. Here's our week 8, and then here's the activities and resources. And I've just put in the activity resources for week 8. All the other ones I've moved to the very bottom of the screen. So if you're looking for anything old, then you got to zoom down and you'll see where first meeting and everything else goes. I spent a lot of time going over some of the wireframe HTML for folks this last week, and I would have liked to have had time for everybody's, but I didn't. So next time I have to do some reviews, which are going to be on your cleaning up the bad code. I'm going to start at the bottom of the alphabet instead of the top of the alphabet. CodePile is really handy for sharing code back and forth in case you're helping each other out. I really want to give a shout out to Tyler. He did a great job on his wireframe. As you can see, it's very dicey to try to get 3 columns in. So good work on him. Although Tyler, remember, we're not doing Beyond the Box anymore. We're doing Greenfield Digital. The back-end technology of WordPress, how it actually works and what you're dealing with, I talked about that in that slideshow on the first week. But if you don't remember it, I gave a nice little resource here that you should go and just give a scan just to remind yourself of what's going on, because it's a lot easier to get things wrong when you're not really sure what's happening. This week I'm going to be talking to you about contributed code. WordPress has the core code, which is maintained by core developers of WordPress, and then it's got contributed code, which different organizations and people go and put in, and when you look for plugins, you're pulling that contributed code out. And it can be tricky to know what to use, and that's what I'm going to be talking about today. Same goes true for themes. Themes that you're going to be pulling in are not made by WordPress, they're made by third parties. The first thing that you're going to do is build out your wireframe in WordPress this week, and I have a whole video that you're going to be following that shows exactly how you do each of those pieces. If you stop the video at each point and go and do exactly that, you should be in good shape. Right now your wireframe has lorem ipsum text and 4 position only images, and I want you to go and actually put the real text and the real images in there so that when you build it into WordPress, you have a good comparison of where you're going from one to the other. We're going to start with the 2015 theme. There's 3 themes in WordPress, and 2015 is one of them. So you go to Appearance and Themes, and WordPress just gives you 3. So 2015 is the one that we start with, and later on you'll be switching to a new one. Okay, now I'm going to move ahead to assignment 2. You're going to be choosing 2 to 3 themes that you're going to explore, which means you're going to check out their demos, think about what the requirements are for your site, and then install them. You shouldn't install only one theme because you want to test at least 2 themes against each other regarding how fast they load and what their code and their customization screens look like. Because if you only do one, then you don't know what the differences are, but by doing 2, you can then pick one and learn a bit. So this is the second assignment. So again, you're going to first build your landing page in WordPress, then you're going to select and install a WordPress theme. Now let's talk about choosing contributed code. We've been talking about widgets and plugins and themes. First, let's talk about plugins. Plugins are code extensions. That means you've got your core code for WordPress, and then other people write other bits of code that hook into that core code to do more things. They may have to do with the display of the site, but they could have to do with anything at all. It's just adding code to the main code. As a result, it could be doing good things, it could be doing bad things, it could be doing nothing if you pick code that isn't actually compatible with your version of WordPress. So choosing plugins is a big deal. There's a bunch of criteria for when you choose a plugin. First of all, you want to say, does the plugin I'm looking at do a thing that I need? When I say don't fill your cart, there's all these free plugins, and you'll read all these things about how you really need to have this one. This one does really great stuff. And you can very quickly have a whole lot of different code on your site that you aren't actually using, and sometimes that code slows your site down, and sometimes that code will conflict with other code, and you'll have a problem and you don't know why. Because, I mean, obviously, since you don't know all the code, you're just hoping it's all going to work, but you really don't know what's going on. So the safest thing is to only install the code that you absolutely need. When you need new code, go and look for that, but only think about the things you need done. Then you only want to pick code that's been updated recently and that is compatible with your version of WordPress, which is 4.6.1. Some people will say that you can use code that's not compatible, and because it could work, but maybe you'll only find out that it doesn't work after committing a lot of time into using it. So for our purposes, stick with compatible code, stick with code that's being updated so that as the world changes, you don't end up with code that breaks and you don't have anybody to fix it for you. Once you know that you've got code that does what you need to do, that's being updated and is compatible with your WordPress, then you still have a lot to choose from very often. So you want to know how many people have downloaded it, how many people like it in terms of their star ratings. Do you have 5 stars or 4 stars? If it's 3 stars, you probably don't want it. And then read some of the reviews. If you really need to have something that doesn't have 5 stars, read what the reviews say and know whether you should be using it or not. And then author information, my guess is you won't be able to make sense of who the good people are to be trusting for code. But if they have names that sound like they're from Russia or China, you might want to be careful. And now we'll talk about widgets. They're basically little boxes where things are displayed for the user. They may have plugins behind them. The plugins may create them. So there's built-in widgets in WordPress, and you're definitely going to be using the text widget this week because I want you to include at least one sidebar text item from your wireframe. There's this area in WordPress where you choose where your widgets are and where they're going to go. So let's take a look at that. I'm going to click on widgets, and I have all of these available widgets. If I've installed a special thing and a special plugin, I might have more widgets. The only widget area I have to work with is the sidebar because this is a default theme and it only comes with one. Some themes have widget areas in the header and in the footer. Maybe there's 2 sidebars, and you can put these wherever you want. So here we have a custom main menu widget, and you get to pick whichever menu you're using. And what happens if I save this? Do I now get 2 menus? Let's find out. I do. So the theme menu is up here, and then I've just added a menu as a widget. Are they different? Well, here, the fact that we're on small business fleets has it bold. Here it does not. And that's because this is the main menu associated with the theme. It's the one you should be using. The only reason you'd want to have a widget menu is if it's a sub-menu, meaning that there's a whole bunch of different pages about small business fleets, and we have that menu down here. 2 different ways to do menus. This main menu gets into the site through Customize, and it's where I say, where's the menu going to be? There's only one place where it's going to go, and this is the menu that's going to be the main menu. So the contributed code are the plugins, and the contributed code are the themes. Plugins are just code that you add onto your website, and then they create widgets, or they do many other things. But themes are the code that shows what your site's going to look like. What are the colors? What are the fonts? What are the layouts of the pages? So the default theme that we're starting with, 2015, is very, very basic. And you can find all kinds of themes all over the internet. So as with plugins, you have to ask yourself, is this the theme that I want? And do I trust it? And do I want to put a lot of time into working with it? Because once you start customizing your site to fit a particular theme, when you go and swap out a theme and put a new one in, you lose a lot of those customizations and you have to redo them. So you don't want to really move too far down without a theme that you're sure of. How do you figure out what theme you want? Well, you have to ask, what does your website need to be able to do that's special? Some people have catalogs of used cars or of gifts. They need a theme that works with a catalog. Some people are doing a site that has events, so you want a theme that does event calendars. Maybe you have a site with a blog or a newsletter. Look for themes that have those elements. It's also good to know if you have widgets in your header, does your theme put widgets in the header? Are there supposed to be left and right sidebars? Because themes that will have only a right sidebar are not going to do that for you. We can edit and make those changes, but it's better at the first point to pick the theme that does the most things that you want, and then try to minimize how much coding you need to do to make that theme do more. So a full-featured theme that does exactly what you want and is designed for the kind of business that you're doing is a great choice. But you may not be able to find that. But you don't want to look at things that are called frameworks. Frameworks are themes that are very, very minimally designed, and you have to do a whole lot more to them, and we don't have time in the course to deal with those. How do you look for themes? Appearance, themes, add. So that looks like this. Appearance, add new. And now you get to browse a billion kinds of themes. Let's say I'm a fire department. I'll say fire department. Are there any themes for fire departments? No, there are not. If I want to then go on to the Wild West of the internet and say WordPress theme for fire department, now I suddenly discover that there are many of them. So let's take a look at which one we like the best. Now there's free themes and there's premium themes. Premium themes cost money. If you have a client that's willing to pay some money, you can ask them to do it. Let's take a look at our fire department themes. It's got a huge big picture and it's got smaller pictures. It's got a lot of white space. And this is one of those long scroll up and down type WordPress sites which are very popular right now. I think this is pretty nifty. If you don't have any photos from your fire department and you want to use the ones that come with a theme, you can, but usually you want to replace those with ones that you have. Let's look at another one. I think this one is pretty overwhelming, but I can imagine how easy it would be to just delete this whole top part. All of these elements in WordPress can be moved in or moved out. So you have to think about what happens when I make this smaller. So this is a responsive theme. You'll see that as I make it smaller, things do drop up and down. That's a good thing. Is this responsive? Yeah, this is also a responsive theme. Everything's going to be a responsive thing at this point. But this has that scrolling over the background, which is kind of cool. I have to say it's not really clear to me which one a person would want at this point. You'd have to think about it yourself. But there's something about this clean white and red that I kind of like. So I think I'd probably go with this one. And I can turn off this entire section if I find it too overwhelming. So here I talk about the different elements of themes, whether they're fixed width or fluid. All the ones that we're looking at here are fixed width. The way I mean by that is, if I make them smaller, they don't move. They're at a certain state, and then all of a sudden they change, and then all of a sudden they change, which means it's checking for different widths and then presenting different numbers. Whereas if it was a fluid, as I would move it, things would get smaller. So fixed width, but these are fixed width that have at media CSS that says if the website is 720 pixels wide, then make each of these columns 200 pixels. If the website is bigger than 720, make them this much. That's what I mean by those jumps, and you'll learn how to do that later on in the course. First thing I'm going to do is download the thing, once I've decided that I want it. And you have to give a bunch of information. Active subscriptions, active resources, quick online shop pro, that must be the theme. So now I've downloaded it. So what do I end up once I take a look at that? What do I have? Well, I have a lot of PHP files, and they're all talking about the display of different sections on a page or different kinds of pages. I do have a style.css. This is a WooCommerce theme, meaning that it's integrated with WordPress's commerce plugin, and that's one for catalogs and online stores. There are different templates for different kinds of layouts on the page. And there's probably a bunch of images that come along too. And JavaScript. So this is pretty complicated, and yet this is what a theme looks like. Now this is a really important thing for me to keep, because if I go into my WordPress site and I edit anything and I break it, then I need to go back to my repository. That's what this is called. It's a repository. And find the code and put it back in. Some places are going to use GitHub as a repository, which is great. Then you don't have to go and download something to your computer. But just make sure before you start editing the CSS or the PHP of anything on WordPress that you've got a copy so you can go back and restore it. Add new, and then we want to upload theme. That's the button for finding something new. Choose the file, and you can actually use a zip file to upload. It installs really, really fast, which is very amazing. I mean, once it finishes uploading the whole thing. And there we go, theme installed. Now I can activate it and make it the home page, the theme of my site. So there it is now, and now I take a look at it and I customize. Oh, there's menus. First thing you always want to do is make sure you've got the right menu, and that's got the menu structure, so we're good. And widgets, what kind of widgets do you get with this theme? Well, yeah, there's a home sidebar area, there's a footer area. See how many you get many more widget areas with a theme, so that's why themes are so important. We've got a bunch of plugins that come with it. And if we want to use the online store, that's what the WooCommerce is for. Anyway, you can see now that the site looks quite a bit different than it did before. And it isn't too bad, actually. I think this is a kind of nifty theme. This, of course, is a slider that I install in the first assignment that you'll be getting to soon. So I hope I've given you enough guidance to know how to select a theme and how to install one. And the interesting thing that I find in all of this is that when I am in my themes and I have a new one that I've added, I end up with a lot more widget areas than I had before. I haven't talked to you yet about how to actually edit the theme, how to change things about it. That's what we're going to do next week. So good luck, and I look forward to seeing your work.